don't think so.
Take a seat. We would be honored if you would join us.
Might want to buckle up, baby. Today's all about Solo. Is it too early to call it a classic? Okay. I don't know what's saying that, but maybe by the end of this episode, someone will. We're both stoked to talk all about it. Honored that you would join us. It's been a little while since the Acolyte came out. It's kind of like, what are we all going to do? Well, we're going to keep talking about Star Wars, of course. It's the first time at the after party. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Tyler Bodkins. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. But I accept it. And with me, it's going to open up a cantina somewhere warm, but not too warm, you know? It's Cameron Porter.
What's up?
Man, Cameron, you came in. Let me just behind the scenes these people for a second. You came in like a bat out of hell. You were rip roaring ready to pod. Yep. What's up? Like, are you into this movie here?
I love this movie. I loved this movie the first time I saw it, and it just over the weekend, I watched half of it Saturday. I watched the other half of it way too late last night, but
yeah.
I was locked in. And if I sit down and watch something too late, and by too late I mean like 9:30 or later.
Yes. He's gone, folks.
I'm gone.
He's gone.
Real quick.
Well, I'm glad you were able to make it through. I'm also glad to hear that, because we've not talked about Solo on this pod in any deep way. I'm sure it's come up at some point in the last year, but I'm glad that you are one of the fellow writers for this Solo thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm big into it, and I'm glad to hear you are as well. I think that the more it goes on, the more I don't feel like I'm alone in this. I feel like everybody's kind of like, yo, are we still going to pretend like Solo's not great? Like, I think everybody's kind of like, now that all the behind the scenes drama, and it's like The Last Jedi didn't come out 6 months ago, and we're not in the middle of all this stuff. I think everybody's just kind of like, yo, this is pretty dope.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you've been in that camp, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The one piece of news that we are going to get to this week is regarding Solo, actually, in some way. There's a little something that's popped up in the news, and I'm going to be honest in saying that, best I can tell, it's spreading at least some bit of misinformation, as though people have not been, and it's, I forgive you if you're not constantly looking at the news and Star Wars like I am, but it's like, I think we're all missing a key piece of this story. So I just want to perhaps provide some clarity for folks, and let me just kind of get into it. Cameron, did you see that very recently, oh man, I'm blanking on his name. Justin, I can't remember his last name. I know he created that show or that movie, Dear White People. Is it Justin
Jordan?
Justin Jordan. I don't know.
No, I'm thinking of Jordan.
It's Justin Simeon. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything wrong. So Justin Simeon originally was tapped to create the Lando TV series.
Okay.
And about a year ago-ish, actually it was less than a year because we covered it on the podcast, he was fired unbeknownst to him. It was quite the drama. It was announced that Lando was not going to be a TV series, and that instead Donald Glover was developing it, I believe along with his brother Stephen Glover, to become a movie.
I remember talking about this.
And Justin Simeon found out over Twitter with the rest of us, which is
God,
not
sucks.
cool. Not cool, Lucasfilm. I mean, it's just not cool. That said, the news now is he's going around, he's talking about it. He's got a film, I believe, he's promoting. And they asked him about it, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it sucked, and I had to really grieve the loss of that. Like, he was really excited to make it.
Sure.
And, which is, of course, super reasonable. What is going around that is kind of misinformation as far as I can tell is everyone's like, the Lando project is dead. It's gone. It's not happening anymore. And on one hand, that's true. The Lando TV series is not happening. But on the other hand, that was news literally months ago.
Right.
And no one is talking to Disney, Lucasfilm, Donald Glover. The last time I saw Donald Glover talk about it was a few months ago, and he was, still in the works. So I'm not saying that this Lando movie that's being developed is ever going to get made any more than I would say that about any film.
Yeah.
Because the track record hasn't been great. But I just want to throw that out there. If you guys are seeing the news of the whole Lando thing being canceled, just remember it's kind of yes and no.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, supposedly when it does come out, it's going to be post the film. So I'd be excited to see it. We'll talk a little bit about Donald Glover as Lando here as we get in. There's some more news. There's some comic book news that we've kind of been putting off, but I say let's put it off one more week because D23 is coming, and there's supposed to be some Star Wars animation news.
Oh, yeah?
Perhaps we'll get whatever the next series is going to be. There may be some news about the Mando Grogu film that should be starting filming soon. There's just going to be a lot of news. I believe that's going to be happening Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something. It's happening this week, and we're recording this on a Monday. So, guys, it may be coming out as you're hearing these words. We're going to talk about it all next week along with some other news that's been popping off. But today, all about Solo?
Yes.
All
All
right.
about Solo.
Let's jump in. Cameron, take me back to 2018. This movie, it came out Memorial Day weekend. It was more of like the classic Star Wars release date as far as I remember. Talk to me about what you remember.
Dude, I was trying to remember last night because I remember seeing this movie in theaters. I probably went and saw it at the Julia.
Okay.
And I cannot remember anything about I remember loving it. I remember walking out and being like, that movie was fantastic. I remember being surprised at how many people seemed to not like it. I can't remember if I went by myself or if I went with people because for the majority of my life, Star Wars has been something that I've just kind of enjoyed in isolation.
Yes.
It's like you don't take somebody who doesn't know. Like I went and saw Emery, a band that we love. I went and saw them in 2020.
I'll say we went and saw Emery. You and me went to go see Emery at New Brooklyn last year. You don't remember?
Oh,
that?
yeah. No. Sorry.
But you're talking about a different time. Sorry.
I was talking about a different time. I just remember I didn't invite anybody else to go. I just went by myself. I was like, I'm not going to bring somebody with me who's not going to enjoy this or understand it as much as me. So I've always kind of taken that approach with Star Wars as well. So it's likely that I went by myself.
Makes sense.
But I never was confused by it. I remember from the time that the movie started until it ended, I was completely zoned in on it.
Yeah.
There was never a lull. There was never a moment where my mind wandered. And it was the same way this weekend watching it because it's funny because I was building Legos while I was watching for the first half of it on Saturday. But I found myself way more locked in with the movie than what I was doing. So as someone who multitasks a lot of the times, it takes a lot of effort for me to zone in on a movie.
Sure.
Solo, start to finish, just completely locked in.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I remember it's kind of like what you're saying. I would have gone with Kayla for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We would have gone to a Thursday night release at Swamp Fox because they're the only ones that do the Thursday night release here in town. And I remember going in, 7 o'clock, digging it. I could be... No, I think I'm thinking about The Last Jedi. I was going to say our friend who I know has listened to the show, Tim Strite. Shout out, Tim, if you're listening. I remember he and I and Kayla went to B-dubs over there by the theater, but I think that was The Last Jedi. I don't think that was Solo. I'm having a hard time remembering it either. It's not for any negative way. It's just, come on, guys. It was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, I loved it. I think that going into it, I can remember just being very, very stoked for it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit cautiously optimistic just because of the nature of the film. You're recasting Han Solo and you're recasting Lando. But at the same time, I felt very confident in Donald Glover because I'm a big fan of his. And I felt like Alden, based off everything I had seen, had done great. And I still hold to this day he did a fantastic job. If there's anyone trying to critique his performance, I think you're just I don't know.
Looking for a reason to not like it.
Yeah, to be fair, maybe you're just better at critiquing actors' performances than I am, but I would think maybe it might just be more you're just too tied to Harrison Ford, which, granted, that's Harrison's role. I mean, I'm certainly not trying to knock anything from the Han Solo.
Honestly, like, I felt this. I had this thought that came across my brain when I was watching it this weekend. From the very first scene and that very first, like, speeder chase, him talking to Lady Proxima, everything, like, there was not one moment that I was like, I'm not really buying the whole Han Solo thing from him. Like,
yeah.
I don't know who else they could have cast for that role or for Lando, but like, I thought that I can't imagine anybody fitting those two roles better.
So, quick funny story, and we'll get into the actual meat of the discussion of the film here very shortly. But let's tie up a couple loose things. You just mentioned you couldn't picture anyone else as Lando. So, O'Shea Jackson Jr., aka Ice Cube Jr., who was in Kenobi. I am almost ashamed, only I have a hard time feeling shame, but I cannot remember his character's name. But he was in Kenobi.
Who's he in?
I'll pull up a picture and you will we'll pull up his name in the show. But that said, he was in the running for the show for Lando, or for the movie rather. And he obviously he got really far in the casting process. Then he did not get the role. And this was in the news recently. He said, I deleted. So funny. He said, I deleted every Childish Gambino song I had off my phone. Oh, it's so funny. So anyways, this is him. You probably recognize him.
Yeah. I saw him in something recently, and somebody was like, "Oh, that's Ice Cube's son." I was like, "Dude, that makes sense because he looks very, very similar to Ice Cube."
You can see it. Anyways, I cannot see. I typed it in. He played the character. Someone said he played Quinlan Voss. No, he wasn't Quinlan Voss. What the? Get out of here. Nope. Anyways, I don't know his name. I'm sorry. Colin. Is that really his name? I can't even pronounce that. Kawlan. His last name is Roken. I think that's what they call him, was Roken. Colin Roken.
Colin Roken.
Is it like Colin?
I haven't rewatched Kenobi.
Colin?
I haven't watched Kenobi since I saw it the only time, so I can't even place where he would have been. But.
Two more quick tidbits about, before we get into the meat of the conversation. One, I got to shout out Ben Gager because he's the one that suggested we watch this. And it's so funny. He must have just been tapped into the Force because he said it. I was like, that's great because I love Solo. Let's definitely do that. And then both the news of Ice Cube Jr. and this thing with Justin Simeon both came out this week. So like Solo is just in the air. I think Gager was just open to the Force or something. Yeah. So maybe some more people will be interested in checking out this episode that we're just talking about Solo.
Well, Ben, thank you. Because I needed this weekend.
Okay, good. So last thing I'll say that I want to talk about before we get into the film itself, I want to talk about the box office performance. So it made, I want to say, in the ballpark of $400 million. I don't care to look it up. You can look it up if you really care. I think that probably wasn't even including the marketing. It probably didn't even make its budget,
Yeah.
And it was fraught with production issues. It was originally supposed to be Lord and Miller who were directing, the guys who did the Lego Movie, amongst a million other things. And they're certainly talented creators, but from what I remember, not that we have to hash out all the drama, but basically they were playing real fast and loose with the script. They were encouraging a lot of what's the word, improv, and it seems like maybe it was getting a little too comical for Lucasfilm's taste. That's when they brought in the great Ron Howard, who I feel like did a great job. So there was all that going on. There was the backlash of The Last Jedi sort of resonating throughout fandom. And the biggest thing I remember was Lucasfilm not releasing a trailer until the Super Bowl, which was only 3 months before the film.
Oh,
and
wow.
I remember thinking, how in the world are you guys going to put this film out with only 3 months worth of marketing?
Yeah.
And
in such a tumultuous time.
And you could argue like they were letting The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi came out in December. And so they were letting The Last Jedi get its full theatrical run of a couple months. That makes sense. And they were like, well, if we're going to put it out, well, we might as well put it out for the Super Bowl. But I just remember thinking, this is just not enough time to... I mean, yeah, okay. I'm thinking... I mean, of course, they probably know better than me, but...
I was just about to say, like, if Star Wars announced a project today and was like, 3 months from now, new Star Wars project, we'd be like,
and I mean,
kid on Christmas.
You know, granted, it's not that the movie had been announced, it's just that they had not promoted... There was no trailer until 3 months before, which is just odd. Usually we would get like a teaser trailer. And I think that was a teaser trailer even then. Mm-hmm. Usually we get a teaser trailer for those big saga films like a year in advance.
Yeah.
So it was just weird, man.
And so 213 million domestically.
Domestically.
392 worldwide.
Yeah, so like 400 million. Yeah. So anyways, it's worth mentioning. Not that it really matters much now, I guess. But I think all of those details played into the reception of the film when it first started. There was also a lot of people complaining about the film being too dark, which I understand. But I just don't see it that way. I don't know. I think the film looks really cool. Literally, it looks cool, like tonally, and then it kind of warms up as the film goes on, which is kind of nice. I kind of like that. So, anyways. That said, it sounds like we're getting into the episode proper, so let's start that conversation.
You're listening to Star Wars After Party. We're honored that you would join us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube for video and wherever you get your podcasts for audio. If you would like to help the pod grow, consider sharing with the Star Wars fans in your life. In addition, leaving 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, giving the video a like, or leaving a comment on YouTube are extremely helpful. Written reviews are the best way to help the podcast reach new listeners. We appreciate your support. Lastly, we want to hear from you. Record a voice memo on your phone and send it over to starwarsafterparty@gmail.com. Written email works too. Now, back to the after party.
So generally, I'm the guy with the notes, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch this movie the day of. I watched it this morning.
Oh, nice.
And it's interesting because I'll finish that thread. And so I didn't take any notes. I was like, I'm just not going to take notes. I'm just going to have some fun. Solo is the funnest Star Wars movie. It's the funnest Star Wars movie. And so in that spirit, and I've watched it like a dozen times at least, so it's not like I don't know the film pretty well. I was like, I'm not taking notes for this. And Cameron, you did. So I'm gonna let you walk through your notes and then we'll jump off from there. But that said, I watched it this morning, which I intended to watch it in the evening because I like to watch movies when it's completely dark.
Yeah.
But I just, schedule-wise, I was out of town. It just didn't happen. There was the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon finale yesterday, so I was like, I'm going to watch that live and then, handle Solo in the morning. And it was fun. Like I said, it's a different vibe for me to watch a Star Wars movie in the morning. I rarely wake up and 6:30 I'm putting on Star Wars. It's generally not the case. Well, sometimes the TV shows, but usually not with a movie. But it was fun. I just kind of took my time today, just watched. Not like I said, I don't usually start my Mondays by watching a Star Wars movie, but here we are.
Anytime I've done that in the past, I've enjoyed it.
It was great. I've had a great day. I don't think that's not a small part of it. It was just fun, man. So, Cameron, walk us through your notes, dude, and we'll cover everything. But
I've got a couple. I mean, these are just kind of like bullet point, just things that I noticed and liked about it. I do remember walking out of the movie theater thinking this movie was so fun.
Yes.
So the fact, like, fun, and I feel like I've heard a lot of people, and I've read a lot of other things where people just said, so it was just a fun movie. It was easy to follow.
Sure.
I felt like it was a perfect blend of new and also like like if we want to talk about the word fan service, or maybe what I more so mean by that is like references to other Star Wars material. It was they were so well done. The little comments that were made, it was just really quick notes or quick backstories about this or that. and it all tied back. Even like you said with Lando saying you might want to buckle up, baby. Like stuff like that. It was an easy thing to watch. And I just...
Wait, was the you might want to buckle up, baby? Was that a callback to something from a previous...
Han Solo says that.
When does he say that?
I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that in the original trilogy.
In one of the original trilogy movies.
Man, I didn't know that. That's weird.
If not, then I read that way wrong. But I feel like I can hear Harrison Ford in my head saying, "You might want to buckle up, baby."
It could be. That's really funny if that's true.
someone fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that was.
Oh man, because I mean, obviously, I like Lando saying it. I put it in our opener. We hear it every week. I just think it's funny. I don't know. I like it. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll find out for sure. But yeah,
to build off that idea, as I was watching it today, I had the exact same thought. I was like, it's so firmly set in the Star Wars universe. There are stormtroopers running around. There is the Millennium Falcon. There are characters that we know. There are references and various things. And there's a lot of that it's not like, for instance, Andor, where there's only like some of that. But then where I had the thought, Cameron, the exact same thought of, man, this is just the perfect amount of new, was when Dryden Vos's ship went over. I was like, I have never seen a ship that looks like that in Star Wars. And it was just so new and so cool. Yet Chewbacca's right there. I've heard, I believe it's Dave Chang of ILM talk about this. He says that there was a rule that they use, and it's the 80-20 rule. 80% familiar, 20% new. And that they've applied that rule for a long time, and it feels like that's right. Because even when you look at the Millennium Falcon, that 80-20 rule, it's like, I can see that. Because like the cockpit looks like the cockpit, all of the interior looks like it, but it's newer, or there might be one corridor where something is just slightly different, or whatever. And so I'm with you. I feel like Solo rode that line just as good as you can. I don't know what to say. I think Ron Howard and the whole team just crushed it. And it was written by, Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, these are no slouches. The script, the dialogue, it is tight. It's great, man.
It played out like an original trilogy movie. Like, I feel like the sequencing of it, the like pacing.
Yes.
Two points to make since you brought these two things up.
Please.
So Dryden Vos's ship.
Yes.
A lot of the first shot that we see of it is inside, and it's a lady and an alien performing music.
Right.
Because it's a yacht, everybody's partying, whatever. And I noticed how well done that music was for that setting, because I feel like there have been times in recent like Star Wars shows that they've recreated that like music, kind of like trying to copy the whole Mos Eisley Cantina, the Bith musicians, the Max Rebo band. Like, that music is so uniquely Star Wars. Like, you can't confuse like, you can't confuse that with
anything,
something you hear on the radio.
Yeah.
So anyway, like whatever that song was, however they recorded it or whatever, they nailed it because it sounds so like otherworldly.
Sure.
And it fit the setting perfectly. So
yeah,
that was one thing that I noticed about his ship. The other thing that I noticed, you were talking about the Millennium Falcon, dude, the shots of them in the cockpit were so good. It was so dark and like all these little blue lights. I mean, it was just, you get what you get with the original trilogy because of the limitations with filming. Then, everything is completely illuminated. You can see, it looks like a spaceship from the 60s or the 70s or something. Right. But their ability to like show the cockpit in this like wide angle where you feel like you're sitting in a big room. It's like it's like they're like really tight shots of them, so you feel like really compacted, but not like not like you can't move around.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you've got L3 sitting in the passenger seat, and then there's a shot of her like walking in, and then it flips to from the Millennium Falcon into the cockpit, and it just feels a lot bigger. The lighting is perfect. It really made you feel like, it would be so cool to be sitting in the Millennium Falcon cockpit right now.
I'm realizing as you're talking to me about this, a couple things. One, how great of a film this is for ship nerds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I got another thing about this. So don't you worry.
Well, I'm going to let you do it. And the other thing I'm realizing is that you're so much more of a Star Wars ship nerd than I am.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, of course I love the Falcon. Of course I love Luke's X-Wing. But like, I just don't go to the same level as you. It's probably the way you feel when I'm talking about the philosophical nature of the Acolyte. Like you're just like, yeah man, it's cool, but like, it's cool how everybody sort of gets something different.
Yeah,
it's great.
I want to feel like I'm in there. Like this has always been a big thing for me, even as a kid growing up. Like trying to understand how big a dinosaur was, or how big like a blue whale is. Like this like desire to stand in front of that thing and really just like experience the size. Because you can't, if you say, oh yeah, a dinosaur is big as a 4-story building. It's like, okay, I know what that looks like, but I need to see it in scale. I need to see an animal or whatever. So that's how I am with ships. But
well, what's the other ship thing you were going to tell me about?
So the Millennium Falcon is a YT 1300 or 2300 class.
It's a YT 1300 freighter.
Yeah. So you'll notice that the middle piece is intact. So the Millennium Falcon is round. The escape pod. So I don't know if a lot of people know that, but that is an escape pod that obviously is missing by the time that we get to the original
it happens
trilogy.
in this film.
Yeah.
Whenever they're trying to escape the Maul and the Maelstrom.
Yep.
What a cool sequence
that was such and that was one of those scenes where you get to see so much of the cockpit.
Yeah.
But and then the other thing that I was going to mention was when they're traveling through hyperspace and that Imperial Star Destroyer shows up.
Yes.
And they deploy that garrison of TIE fighters. One of the variants of TIE fighters that they deploy is a TIE Brute. And it's this weird, like a TIE bomber's got 2 fuselages.
I'll say it looked like a TIE bomber to me, but it's not.
Right, because the TIE bomber's got 2 fuselages that are the same size. This one's got like normal size and then a smaller one, and it's just like a real beefed up TIE fighter. And it's
very cool.
It's cool to see those in live action.
Man, wild. Well, walk us through your next bit of notes. This has been good.
So the Imperial officer is who bestows Solo.
Okay, let's talk about that.
On Han as his last name.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like there's a lot of deeper symbolism to it for sure that I haven't I recognize it. I was like, there's something to this. The fact that here's Han Solo trying to escape.
Yeah.
Doesn't like the Empire, doesn't like rules. He's using it as a means to his own end. And yet his last name or who he's known as in the galaxy, he has the Empire to thank for.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I will say it like this. This is the one part of the film that I've always been like, I really could have done without that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That said, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan. If anything, if he would have just said it himself and the implication was strong that he was coming up with it in the moment, even that I would be cool with. But I don't know, man, because obviously he knows his dad, so he knows what his last name is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this weird thing of now Han Solo has a last name, but we don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. There was even that comic run where he met his dad, but it wasn't his dad. It's just all a bit strange to me. I don't really pick it up like that. Now, I do want to say this. The delivery of that Imperial officer, the way it was handled on a practical level of acting and delivery and dialogue, perfect.
Yeah.
I just don't really care for the idea. Yeah. But the way he delivered it, I was watching it today. Obviously, I know it's coming. I've kind of made my peace. This is the one part of the film that I'm like, did you have to? But as I was watching it, I was like, let me watch it. And I was like, man, I'll say all that, but the guy delivers it great. Just the right amount of, Just the right amount of pause before
Yeah.
saying Solo, and Han kind of like almost like having this look on his face. It's like almost like I like that. You know,
Yeah.
it was great. It was great. I just don't care for the
I
idea.
liked what it represented.
Sure.
You know, who are your people? What's your last name? Who are your
yes.
people? I don't have any
He's
people.
out for, and that was, you know, part of his journey. He just became someone who was just out for himself.
Yeah.
And you know, something I noticed, let's talk a little bit before we go to your next note. This feels like a good time to bring this in. It feels to me like, and why I would love to have follow-up material to Solo is that Alden doesn't really begin playing the Han that we know in A New Hope until the final 5 or 10 minutes of this film.
Yeah.
That once Beckett backstabs him, once Kira leaves him, he sort of becomes
the evolution. That was the transition right there.
That was the catalyst for him becoming this, you know what? Fine. Me and my buddy Chewie here, everybody else can kick rocks.
Yeah.
And the Falcon. But what I will say is, I've always kind of felt that way, but as I watched it today, I thought about the smiling and lighthearted nature that he was showing earlier in the film before all this stuff happened. And I went, actually, that reminds me a lot of Han Solo in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
After, I'll say it like this. Han's motivation throughout this film was love. He loved Kira. He wanted to build a life with her. When she left him, that part of him was gone.
Yeah.
That carefree boy who was driven by love so much that Val was like, that's love. I see that. It was gone. It would make sense that in Return of the Jedi now, when Leia comes and rescues him and they profess their love to each other,
Yep.
he
Right back
returns
on
to being that. Look at him in the, you know, on Endor, or the way that he looked when Luke showed up, when they're planning the assault or whatever, the invasion to Endor.
Yeah.
Just all of his demeanor, Harrison Ford's demeanor through there. That's more what Alden was doing. But we think of Han Solo, we think A New Hope, we think Empire Strikes Back for the most part, for good reason. But yeah, he doesn't really become that Han until the end of the film. And I would love to see his take on this more grizzled, calloused, jaded Han Solo. It would be really good. It's more of a bummer that we haven't gotten any follow-up material.
I know.
Because I think that, you know, like we've said, I mean, Alden's just done a great job, and he was written so well by you know, the Kastans. I love it. It's great.
I keep thinking about the scene of him standing there in front of Lady Proxima in the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And he said, somebody kept like hitting him, and he grabbed the stick and he said, I said the next time somebody hits me, I hit them back.
Yeah.
And it was so, I loved that line so much because it was so boyish, but also you could really like, if we're going to talk about his like delivery or whatever, like that scene and the scene of Kira getting like left behind at the customs gate and him like slamming his hands, like you can really feel the emotion in that.
Yeah, dude, he's great. He's a great actor. He nailed it.
And I can resonate with that mischievous, like kind of cocky a little bit, but
Cameron?
No, I'm not like suave or anything like freaking Han Solo, but like there's something of that childish, like playful nature that I can resonate with.
Yeah, you definitely embody that. I was joking, but yeah, you're for sure. I can see that. I'm Luke Skywalker, you're Han Solo. That seems to be the way of our friendship.
But I hadn't really thought about that. Those couple of things happening that were kind of the catalyst for that transition. But you're absolutely right. It's like what do I do now? The person that Han Solo latches onto people, or in this movie, he's able to latch onto things real easy.
Yeah.
Tobias Beckett, he's like, that's my mentor. That's my guy. I'm going to work for him.
The second he met him, he was like, I'm following this guy. Like immediately he saw him flip those guns. He's like, that's my guy.
Yep.
That's a great point, Cameron, that he latched onto people so quickly. Whereas in A New Hope, you guys go do the Death Star thing. I'm going to go do this. And they're like,
I'm not a part of this rebellion. Yeah.
I knew there was more to you than money.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a good insight.
Tobias Beckett, though. Woody Harrelson in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm for it.
I was for it.
It's
too.
wild. It's crazy that's it. But he did a great job. I mean,
He played the role so well.
while we're talking about different actors, how about Johnny Favs playing? I was like, why does it feel like Paz Vizsla is hanging around? I love Jon Favreau as Rio. I think he's.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
I didn't know
that's
that.
Jon Favreau. Yeah, bro.
That checks out. That makes sense.
You don't. What does he say? You don't know love, or you don't know comfort until you've sat in the arms of a Wookiee.
Oh
I love
yeah,
the way
you
he says-
slept in the lap of or the
that's
arms of
what
a
it is.
Wookiee or something.
I love the way he says Wookiee.
Yeah, he said Wookiee. Yeah,
Wookiee.
and it was funny. He said it. Did he say it to Vel?
I don't know
Or-
who he says it to.
Whoever
They
he said
kinda
it to
give
was
him
like a full normal sized person. I laughed to myself because I was
that's a
like,
good point.
like you're comparing that you're small and you could easily curl up in the lap of a Wookiee, but Tobias Beckett can't. So that's not a selling
That's funny.
point.
That's funny. I like that.
Dude, how about the fact that they mentioned that Tobias Beckett killed Aura Singh?
Yes.
That was such a good.
Yeah, it's a great little subtle callback.
Yeah.
You killed Aura Singh.
I
didn't kill her. I pushed her.
Pretty,
I'm pretty sure it's the fall that
pretty
killed
sure
her.
the fault. Yeah, so
Such
good.
a great line, man. Yes.
Also, we got Vel mentioned Bosk early on in the movie.
Yes,
Like when
yes.
they were talking about like other people for the
Subtle
job.
Easter egg.
Yeah. So 2 little bounty hunter Easter eggs right there
It's
that
a
I did
small
not know
galaxy.
before.
You know, it's very small.
Yeah.
I like that though.
Let's see. Dryden Vos. I noticed his blades. What
Yeah.
are they called? Petars is what they were called. I thought at first they were Ascendant technology. Because I thought about Kira, I thought about our Hidden Empire, Crimson Reign, like arc of Star Wars, and they talked so much about these like Sith weapons and technologies and stuff. And like I was like, I had to look it up. It's not Sith tech, but
Yeah.
I looked it up. But it kind of gave me that vibe.
Dude, I've got the visual guide. I meant to bring it over here, but I guess we're doing fine without it.
Yeah.
You mentioned these comics that are here. If you're not watching, we've got all the. I decided to throw up the Crimson Reign and the Hidden Empire comics. Just it ties into Kira. This was
Our Lady herself.
yeah, it's part of the War of the Bounty Hunters. It was like a 3-part, 5-issue each series.
Yep.
That tied into the main lines for literally 2 years. It took forever. But that said, here I want to call attention to a couple quick things, not totally related to the movie, but who's this guy look like over here on issue 4?
I was gonna ask you about this. That looks like
It's a lot like your boy Chimere.
Chimere. Yep.
I mean,
I can't. This is who I was referencing when we were talking about like his
Yeah,
mask.
yeah.
I said he looked like a Knight of Ren, but not
Yeah,
one
it's-
of the ones from the sequel trilogy. This guy.
It's actually Ren.
That is
he,
Ren,
He is
okay.
Ren. He stylized himself after the original Ren. That's why a lot of people are sort of speculating that Chimere might become a Knight of Ren versus being a Sith, which I could see that happen.
I love that.
Especially, it would be especially cool if that means that he's able to survive. Because if he's a Sith, we know he can't survive.
Right.
But if he survives and he becomes the original Ren, then that brings up the idea of let's give Manny Jacinto his own series and let's just, I mean, dude, as far as I'm concerned, if there was one thing that everybody was like, all right, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was it was him. It was
Yeah.
his character. I mean, it would be sick because if I'm not mistaken, the Knights of Ren kind of go off into the unknown regions.
Yeah.
So he can just go off and whatever storyteller wants to tell that story would have a wide berth to do
That
so. I mean, it
would be
really dope.
So I had not even made that. I hadn't heard that, but that would be so sick
It would be.
to see him turn into the. Yeah. All right, Leslie.
Just for that. So
Come on, please.
So, last thing I'll say, I remembered towards the end of the film, the last thing that Kira says to Han, she said, "Smile." I would smile when I would think about you off on an adventure.
Yeah.
And I remembered that this series concludes. The final shot is Kira. Let me stop for just 1 second. Spoiler alert.
I was waiting for you to do it.
Flash forward 30 seconds starting now. So the last shot is of Kira sitting in a cantina and they're showing the destruction of Death Star 2
Yep.
and the Empire has fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And the last shots are her. Like it goes under her face. And I was like, I can't remember. Was she smiling? And she was not.
She was not.
She was not very happy. So she's thinking perhaps of Han Solo, but she no longer has the smile.
No smile.
That's the last thing we know about Kira. All right.
Yeah.
Out of spoilers.
Yeah. If you watched this movie and felt similarly to me and probably how Tyler felt, like you were kind of getting robbed or you needed more, you need a continuance of this story, do yourself a favor and read these books, because you get so like it circulates around Kira.
Yes.
And her like leading Crimson Dawn, which, at the end of the movie, we see her kill Dryden Vos. She's reporting to Darth Maul, who at the time is the leader of Crimson Dawn.
Of the crime syndicates.
Yeah. So her in like full power to complete her growth from like streets of Corellia, working her way up to leader of this giant, seemingly limitless money crime syndicate.
It's wild. We won't super get into the plot, but if you want to read it, it starts with the War of the Bounty Hunters arc. It's 5 issues, then it goes into Crimson Reign, and then it goes into Hidden Empire, all written by Charles Soule, who we've talked about on the pod before. He's done a bunch of great stuff, and he did a fantastic job on these 3 series. So if you wanted to, you could either check out Marvel Unlimited on like your iPad, or you could order the trades if you wanted to. You might be able to find floppies on eBay, but the trades are probably on Amazon I'd bet you could read the whole thing for $40 or so. So anyways, just worth throwing out. And it's set later in the timeline. It's set in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Yep. So it is after whatever happens to Maul in Rebels and all that stuff. So anyways, it's just worth mentioning. Cameron, walk us through some more of your notes.
That's a good transition, because cool. I did note that so we get Maul at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
I've got a couple other Easter egg things, but like this is a bigger one. So Solo is set 10 years before A New Hope.
Yes.
I was looking all this up last night because I was trying to like figure out, because there's so many pieces that are missing.
Well, it's set around the same time, by the way, as Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is
weird when you just
let your
Leia
brain kind of sit on that for a little while.
It is what it is.
So Solo is 10 years before A New Hope. Maul dies 2 years before A New Hope in Rebels.
Yes, my friend, you're getting into some territory that I
dude, I'm telling you, my 2 brain cells were just like really clicking this weekend. But so we get 8 years.
That's right.
There's 8 years of Maul leading this crime syndicate after this movie.
Well, not
supposedly,
not exactly.
Yeah.
Can I jump in with some clarifications? But I like,
because I'm just kind of like out here like questioning a lot of things.
So here's what I'll say: the timeline of Maul, as far as I'm aware, he leaves 19 BBY, the end of the Clone Wars, which is right in line with Revenge of the Sith. He goes off. That's the last we really see of him until this moment. In this moment, he is the leader of these 5 crime syndicates. The next time we see him is season 2 of Rebels. The 2-part finale where Ahsoka fights Vader. They find Maul on Malachor.
Yep.
At that point, that's roughly a year or so probably before his demise ultimately at the hands of Obi-Wan. Something happened in between. He's running all these crime syndicates in Solo, and he's on Malachor. We don't know how he got there. That is a mystery that only Dave Filoni, if anyone knows.
Yeah.
Here's my pitch. Lucasfilm. I'm just kidding. But here's what I would love to see.
For the sequel to Solo that we should have gotten.
I feel like, I don't know about the sequel to Solo,
or
but
not,
just the Maul arc.
Continuation in this like timeline.
When Maul has his final battle with Kenobi, he says, "You took everything from me."
Yeah.
Everything? Took his legs, took his mantle as Sith Lord.
I remember.
Did Kenobi also take his crime syndicate from him?
Could have.
Season 2 of Kenobi.
I'm getting deja vu. Did we talk? I know we talked about this.
I have had this idea since Solo. I don't know. I've had this idea for forever.
Yeah.
Season 2 of Kenobi is not anything about Darth Vader. He's a little bit more active with things, and he comes to find out that his old nemesis, Darth Maul, is running this giant crime syndicate. It would be easy for him to find out because Obi-Wan knows that Jabba is doing his thing there on Tatooine. And season 2 of Kenobi would focus around Obi-Wan taking down Darth Maul's crime syndicate.
Please.
And leaving him stranded on Malachor at this Sith temple where presumably Maul was trying to find this crazy Sith weapon that we still don't really know anything about. So, to me, that would be so dope.
What that just like made me think of is like Star Wars, Disney.
Yeah.
There's so much fertile ground in
so
these
much.
like Solo is just, I feel like Solo is kind of like forgotten about.
Yeah.
You know, the Obi-Wan show kind of forgotten about. Everybody watched it one time and it's like, okay, it is what it was. We're focused on the High Republic era. We're focused on the skeleton. Let's all take a step back. Let's just go hit something like this. Let's get this one thing in between. Let's get Obi-Wan and Maul and just close this gap. Because I feel like
Just picture the trailer at Celebration where they recreate that moment of the Phantom Menace trailer where Darth Maul goes, one blade, another blade, and then you just hear him yell Kenobi and they run at each other and it's like coming to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
or just him whisper it the way that he does. Kenobi or whatever.
Yeah, man.
Honestly, like
great.
we're moving on from Solo to Maul right now, but like
Come on, Cameron, let's rein it back in.
I'm thinking about Maul's story. Like he was in Phantom Menace, disappeared. Then we get out of the blue, out of nowhere, we get this giant story about Maul in Clone Wars. All this stuff about him. And then it concludes in Obi-Wan show. Like Maul is already this character that has like done such a good job of surprising people by like ducking in and out of Star Wars. Why not just throw him in and just like finish it? Oh,
look, man, like I know that it wasn't received as the best, but Ewan McGregor is Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And if you throw Darth Maul in the mix, come on. Just
get Ray back in.
Let's get a solid script. Let's get some good writing. Let's get a solid director or team of directors. It feels like a home run, but I don't know. I get it. These things are difficult to make happen. I understand, but all right, back to Solo. Come on, Cameron.
All right, back to Solo. Sorry.
Walk us through some of the other stuff, and then we'll start landing the ship here soon. But what else you got?
My other two points that I wanted to talk about were L3.
Yeah, let's go.
So Lando's droid and lover. That was a big.
It works.
How does that? Oh, it works. Anyway, that was such a weird thing that was thrown into Star Wars, but I do too.
It's so weird.
With Lando being coded the way that he is, like it checks out. But you see it being more than just this funny, like, oh, that's weird. He's like likes the droid, but the way that she dies and the way that like he obviously
so heartfelt when he's carrying. Yeah.
But she would have loved Ajax Sigma.
I don't even know what that is.
The leader of the second revelation, the sentient droids from Dark Droids.
Oh yes. No, I know what you're talking about now. You're exactly right.
Because she was, so they were down there.
Cut, but yeah,
they were down there in the pit. They were making the droids fight each other.
Yeah,
and she was down there like making a big deal, making a big scene, talking about revolt or you are sentient beings or whatever.
Yeah.
She was screaming for revolution in the comic book spinoff Dark Droids.
Yes.
I won't go into all of what that is, but there is a planet where there is a subset of sentient droids.
Yes. Also written by Charles Soule.
Yes. Incredible. They come together, they fight this incredible, disgusting droid horde that we talked about at length at one point on.
Bro, we've never had a guest on the show. I want Charles Soule. I know we're
yeah.
peanuts over here, but that'd be fun. I would love to talk to Charles Soule.
But the second revelation was this planet of droids that were aligned around the idea that droids can be sentient beings, which is like a very interesting thing to kind of consider. And I guess we're going to work our way into that more and more in the world that we live in with the rise of AI and stuff.
As you're talking this, I'm like, here comes AI.
Yeah. But anyway, L3,
And then she becomes the ship in the Falcon, or the computer in the Falcon.
It's like poetry.
That 3PO argues with and says it has a peculiar dialect, and it's her. Yeah, it's kind of a. I remember people getting all up in arms about that. They're like, oh, I hate, like, I don't know. They're like, it's so gross that all she wanted was her own autonomy, and then they made her stay stuck in the ship. It's like she became the Millennium Falcon.
They kept her alive.
She's not real. It's a droid. I'm sorry. Like, I love droids. I'm not trying to go around and kill droids, but it's a droid.
Yeah.
Why the outrage? Please. With all the things to be outraged by. Now
get the Falcon out of here.
All right. What were your other things?
The other thing that I noted was within this.
We good?
Did we?
I think we're good. Sorry, we just had a little bit of a, hopefully you won't notice except for maybe a slight little cut on YouTube, but we had a session crash earlier, so we're a little bit jumpy today, but please, I think we're good. Keep going.
So Enfys Nest. Did you notice any Easter eggs with the gang in Enfys Nest? Any of those characters?
I saw the great, Warwick Davis there, who plays Wicket.
Yep.
He's also seems like it might be the same character from the Phantom Menace, because he's in the Phantom Menace. I want to say maybe he's hanging out with Aura Singh. It's in that. I think it's around that same time. I think it's during the pod race that we see him. I could be mistaken. Yeah. Then also Two Tubes. I think that was Two Tubes. Was it two? Is it Two Tubes? I can't remember, but I think it is.
I spent like an hour last night.
It's Two Tubes, right?
Trying to figure out who the heck, how anyone ever referenced that character to try to figure out. Yeah, but Two Tubes is right.
Yeah.
Saw Gerrera is like number one.
Yeah.
I was Googling Saw Gerrera soldier Andor. I was Googling Saw Gerrera lieutenant. Saw Gerrera
Yeah.
Because I remembered him.
Two Tubes.
But yeah, Enfys Nest, we get these. There's a couple of characters that we see in the background. One of them being Two Tubes from Andor, and I was like, wait a minute, is that actually him, or is that just another character that looks like him? I think it was too.
Yeah, I think it was him. Although
because he had that really, really, really long, like obnoxiously long blaster rifle, like sniper rifle.
I could look it up in the dictionary, but I mean, I guess we don't have to worry about it right now. But
yeah, we don't have to worry about it. But those were the two. Those were the two characters that I noticed. The guy that played Wicket, and I was like, I couldn't remember he was in Phantom Menace. I knew that he was in a Star Wars thing though.
Yeah,
but I couldn't remember.
Let's talk a little bit about sort of just the tone and feel of the film. I mean, if I were to say two things about, if I was trying to describe the film, I would definitely say fun, like we said before. Yep. I think the other word I would use is just cool. It's such a cool movie. Like I know I mentioned a little bit earlier, but just the cinematography to me is just, it's such a it's just for lack of a better term, I'm going to sound like the young kids for a bit. It's a vibe. It's just such a good vibe. When I put this film on, there's a great tone to it. That I find the acting, like just the quality of the acting to be great. The writing, the direct, I can't get over it. The score, everything about it, like some of the moments of the different things with the score. It ties in, like you said. There's just enough of the old coming in there. You get, occasionally you get the Force theme, like whenever, he sees the Falcon for the first time, like that score surges perfect. I mean, it's just a well executed and well put together film. I just love the vibe. Thoughts?
I feel like you could watch Solo and then immediately watch A New Hope, and it would slide. It would fit right in.
Interesting. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to mention, or like, you know what Solo is in the Star Wars world?
What's that?
It's double dipping because it's all Lucasfilm, but Solo is the Indiana Jones movie of Star Wars. It is just pure like
adventure.
It is concentrate. It is adventure concentrated.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I was thinking about it. I was trying to, really consider it, and I'm open to being wrong about this, but a lot of times, like with A New Hope, and I would say even throughout the trilogy, and you see it in Mando, it's everywhere. The hero's journey.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell talks about, and George is obviously a student of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I really feel like Han had a hero's journey in this. I feel like his hero's journey is more in the original trilogy.
Agreed.
It was more like a descent into being jaded, less than, because he didn't really resist the call. He didn't do any of that, to my knowledge. Like, the whole time he was trying to make it happen. But he did become, I guess in some way he became the scoundrel that he is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is like the hero's descent.
In some ways, it almost felt kind of like, in some ways, like the prequel, where it was like the inverse, where you see Anakin become the villain. Not that Han became a villain, but it was just, I don't know, just interesting in that way. I just had that thought. I'm open to, if someone's like, actually, Tyler, you missed it. Look at this, and I'm open to that. But it didn't feel that way. So. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, you were just talking about the vibe of the movie, and you said cool. We talked about it being fun.
Yeah.
It also, in a way, is really tragic and sad to me. The main theme of that being Kira and like the...
Oh, man.
Of course, she and Han not working out, but more so like all of the insinuating of like all these very vague, sketchy things that she did to get where she was. Yeah. Which I took that one way. It's more R-rated, but it is probably more of a more PG-13 with, her having to kill people or do some really, really, really ruthless things. But I didn't like, it made me super uncomfortable seeing how Dryden Vos interacted with her. And they played into that a lot with how Solo responded to it and like how he felt. Like I kind of resonated with him in that moment. It's really just a really sad thing to think about what happened. I mean, because we won't ever get Kira's. I mean, actually, there's a book about her.
I haven't read that.
It came out in like 2022, I think, because I was researching last night trying to figure out. But
I get what you're saying, though. There's this insinuation that she's done a lot of dark things and that she feels like she is beyond redemption, which is the story of a lot of people. You identify with the things that have happened to you, the pain that it's caused, and you sort of almost create an identity around that pain. It's a common thing that can happen, and it seems like she was retreating further and further into that. Mm-hmm. And you're right; it's extremely sad when you consider all the things that were done to her. And really, I would say if there was like a theme or something that seems to run throughout this film, it's this idea of not wanting to be controlled, having freedom. Yeah. Like, you see that was something that the two of them longed for at the beginning of the film. And in some ways, I guess if there was a journey, I would say that by the end of the film, at least for now, or in some ways, Han was free. The interesting thing is, I don't know that Kira was. No. Because while she is at the top, I mean, now she has to answer to Darth Maul. I mean, I wouldn't call that freedom. I mean, that sounds like a prison. She either, you could look at it two ways. She either realized that she was too far gone to be saved or redeemed, and she's like, well, I'll just stay in this like really sick world. Or she herself had become so jaded and in what she had to do, to where her goal is to rise and become great or become powerful or whatever. Yes. And she had gotten to a point by this point where she was so numb to this idea of her and Han like going off and seeing the galaxy together that she was like, actually, I want this power more. Yeah, I think it's both of those things. I think that she felt that she was beyond redemption, and that at the very least she was not going to be controlled again, and the one way to ensure that is to seize as much power as you can. It's a very real world thing. I think you can usually, it seems like you can go one of two ways. Bad things happen to you. You can devote yourself to living a life in which you help others so that doesn't happen to them, or you go when you try to get as much power so it doesn't happen to you again. It's an interesting, they kind of diverged on that path, but yeah, man, I love it. Real quick, last thing, let's talk Chewie. I love Chewie in this movie. Yeah. Everything, talk about Chewie. Everything with Han and Chewie, from their first interaction to Chewie helping the Wookiees in the cave, the mines rather, to him sticking by Han's side, My favorite part of the film is probably when he says, you know, hey man, don't I always, like, I can't remember the exact line at the very end where he says, don't I always take care of us? And Chewie just gives him a little, like, are you serious? Like, it's perfect. Shout out to Jonas, who I'm pretty sure by this time was fully doing Chewbacca, and it's great. It's a great performance. I love Chewie in this movie.
Oh, I do too. I love the way that they met and how that all had to play out, and
the scene where they're in the shower was great. Yeah, love it. We talked Lando to some degree, but I've heard it said at times that you can sort of hear Donald Glover going in and out of the classic Billy D cadence and voice. And I do see that to some degree. I just want to mention that I think I've heard it said that like roughly 20% of this film was shot by one set of directors and 80% was shot by another. So,
wow.
You know, some of that could be explained by that. I'm just saying it's possible. It could also just be explained if you want some headcanon. Here's some. Lando was full of it, and sometimes he's acting, and sometimes he is being himself. And,
yeah, there you go.
You know, you could explain it like that. But all that said, either way, I love Donald Glover in the role. I'm a big fan of Donald Glover's work, from his music to his acting to all of it. And so I would love to see what he has to say in a solo series. And we did just lose video real quick. Again, we had some audio issues, and so I think we just ran out of time on the video. No big deal.
Sayonara, YouTube. If you guys are still watching a black screen
you're
right
still
now.
hearing it, just might look a little bit different. Apologies.
We're just sitting in the dark. We're just chatting by the fire.
That's the way I like to think of this. But you know, that said, Lando, great. I've got nothing to really critique. I guess that's kind of normal for me, but I mean, even so, like, I just think it's a great film. If it's been a while since you watched it, I would recommend putting it on this weekend.
Please,
have yourself a great time. It's a really fun movie.
Yeah.
So love it.
If you've been watching The Acolyte alongside us, you know, The Acolyte, mysterious. It's a lot of thinking that you got to do. Solo, if you need a little refresher for your brain, just throw something easy on. Just put it on and watch it and just have a good time.
Now, before we wrap, something that just popped in my mind that I had forgotten until now, and I can't not give it a shout out.
All right.
There's a Star Wars podcast called Blast Points. And a friend of the pod, Jim Stevens, turned me on to them a while back. And it's a really zany, crazy podcast. They find these obscure things about Star Wars and do a whole episode around them. And it can be anything from like the vinyl version of the audio drama of The Empire Strikes Back, and they'll go back and listen to that from 1980 or whatever and do a commentary on it. Like, just weird stuff. Or this one particular person that works at ILM, and it's that kind of show. They'll go into some real deep stuff. This week, I mean, it was perfect. I try to, of course, I listen to a lot of Star Wars content. But that said, I've been trying to cut back pretty much all of my entertainment. I'm really trying to like dial it down a little bit, just for personal reasons, I guess. And so I was not going to listen to their episode this week. And Jim texted me and he was like, Blast Points this week was sick. And I was like, okay, I trust Jim. Like, if Jim's telling me something's good, I'm going to check it out. So I downloaded it. It was one of my favorite Star Wars podcast episodes ever. Let me give you the what it was about, and then everybody go listen to it.
All
Give
right.
them 5 stars while you're at it. Write them a review. Tell them how awesome they are. So it was them reading fan letters out of a sci-fi magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say what it could have been. It could have been exactly what fans are saying about The Acolyte right now. So all of the I loved it. I love the philosophical. To this is incredible. Or sorry. This is terrible. This flies in the face of the original. Like, it could have been that. It could have been exactly like The Acolyte. but it was from 1983 and it was about Return of the Jedi.
That's amazing. I'm
and
looking
the
for it right
amount
now.
of people that were hating on Return of the Jedi, which, by the way, they did it to The Empire Strikes Back too, but this particular episode was them talking about this. Go back and listen to it. Cameron, you and I discussed last week the idea of the Acolyte and sort of the hate it was getting, and you were concerned for Skeleton Crew, and I was like, I don't know. It's not that people aren't hating on the Acolyte, but I mentioned I don't know if it's any different than usual. This sort of lends credence to that and kind of gives us a little bit of peace of, don't worry. It's always been happening. It happened with the original trilogy. It happened with the prequels.
Yep.
It's happening with the sequels. It happened with The Mandalorian. It's happening with... It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
Particularly, you'll see it in this podcast if you listen to it, particularly when people think that... I won't say even they think. Maybe they're highly intelligent. But sometimes with high intelligence comes other issues. And it's just so funny to listen to these reviews. It legitimately could have been about the Acolyte. If you just, instead of saying Return of the Jedi, you said the Acolyte, it would have been the same thing. So it's always been like this. Eventually, there are going to be a ton of people that come out and talk about how much they love the Acolyte, how much they love season 3 of Mando, how much they love whatever it is that everyone's been hating on. There are just as many people that absolutely love it. Just a nice reminder in a incredibly entertaining episode. Blast Points, go check them out. It was the last episode that they posted. By this time, actually, it might be the second to last.
Yeah.
So just putting that out there. But yeah, go check it out. Cameron, you should check it out too. I think you'll like it.
Oh, I'll definitely check it out.
So that said, that was our Solo discussion. And if you have something to say about Solo, why don't you tell us? You can write in or you can send a voicemail. We'll play it next week before we get into any news that's breaking. So it's not too late. You can talk to us about Solo if you'd like.
Someone sharing this excitement.
Yeah, and I think we might have. If everything goes according to plan, we'll have some cool, exciting announcement news for the podcast, us as well. So that'll be fun. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into that. Me and Cameron are about to get into. I'm gonna get at least a dozen wings, man. We're about to go get some wings and talk some podcast stuff.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I can't wait. Cameron, anything else before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right. Well, then let's land this ship. We will be back next week. We'll be talking about all this news that's coming out. Again, by now, maybe you've heard it. Congratulations. You're living in the future. Cameron, what bit of news would you be the most excited to hear of Star Wars stuff that could be coming out?
Well, obviously, based off of what we talked about, more Maul.
Okay, all right, more Maul.
We're not going to get it, but that's all I can think about now.
Now, an animated series with Maul, who knows? It could happen. You never know.
It's so good.
I guess we'll see. And I guess we'll see what comes out in the next week. We'll be back like we always are on YouTube, on podcast. Until then, Tyler out.
Cameron out.
This party's